I wasn't invited to my father's funeral, and then the lawyer told me I was his only heir. It hit me like a sucker punch. I wasn't invited to my own father's funeral. Not a call, not a message, not even a damn obituary link. I found out 3 days later from a friend of his who bumped into me at a gas station. "I'm sorry about your dad," he said, handing me a coffee I didn't remember asking for. The service was beautiful. Beautiful? I didn't even know he was dead. It shouldn't have surprised me. Not really. Ever since Dad married Marlene, things had changed. She came into our lives like a thunderstorm in July, sudden, loud, and impossible to ignore. I was 17 when they tied the knot. She brought her own son, Caleb, into the mix, and Dad treated him like the golden boy from day one. By the time I turned 21, I was already the afterthought. Marlene was the kind of woman who always needed to be the center of the story. She ran charity luncheons, hosted book clubs she didn't read for, and made sure her Instagram made our modest life look like a spread from Architectural Digest. And somehow, she convinced my dad that distance from me meant stability, that maybe I reminded him too much of the first wife, my mom. After college, I moved 2 states away, built a quiet life. Tech support job, cheap apartment, no drama. We'd talk on holidays, exchange strained phone calls where he'd ask if I was seeing anyone, and I'd pretend not to notice how little he listened to the answer. So when I found out he died and nobody had told me, that silence was loud, but familiar. I drove back for the burial. I didn't know why. Closure, maybe. Or some twisted sense of obligation. I didn't go to the house. I couldn't. But I stood at the back of the cemetery an hour after the service had ended, just staring at the fresh dirt. That's where Greg found me. His full name's Gregory Linton, ESQ, and he was Dad's lawyer for 20 years. Always smelled like peppermint and dry ink. He looked at me like he was seeing a ghost. "Your father left a letter for you," he said. "He what?" Greg didn't answer. He just handed me a sealed envelope and said, "Come by the office tomorrow morning. There's more." More? I took the letter, but I didn't open it right away. Not in the car. Not when I got back to the dingy motel room I'd rented for the night. I sat with it for hours, just staring. The handwriting was definitely his. Tight cursive. Name scrawled like it weighed something. When I finally tore it open, I didn't find closure. I found a bomb. "If you're reading this, I'm gone. And I owe you more than I ever gave. You were my son. My first. And I failed you." That's how it started. It got worse. He admitted he let Marlene pull him away. That he saw how she treated me, and he stayed silent. That every time he chose not to visit, not to call, he felt it. And he buried it. Just like he buried the truth about his estate. "You deserve the life I should have given you. So I left it to you. All of it." My throat went dry. I blinked at the words like they might rearrange themselves. "Come to Greg's office," the letter ended. "He'll explain. And I hope someday you can forgive me." I sat there in that motel room, heart racing, head spinning. I was supposed to be the forgotten son, the one left out of the photo albums and the family group chat. But suddenly, I was the sole heir. And Marlene? She had no idea yet. Neither did Caleb. God help us all. Greg's office smelled like a museum of old regrets. Leather chairs that groaned like they knew too much. Law books stacked like centuries. Blinds half drawn to keep the sun from touching the truth. I hadn't been in that room since I was a teenager, back when my dad still looked at me like I mattered. Now I was back, summoned by a dead man's confession. Greg barely looked up as I stepped in. "You came." "Of course I did." He nodded toward the seat across from him. I sat. The chair felt stiff, unfamiliar, like it didn't want me there. "Your father left instructions. Very precise. Legally binding, airtight." He slid a folder toward me. Yellow tabbed. Thick. My name sat bold on the top sheet. I didn't touch it. "You're the sole heir," Greg said. Just like that. No warm-up, no ceremony. My breath caught. "Come again. Everything. The main house. 2 rental properties in Florida. The lake house. Bank accounts, investments, the works." I stared at him. I could hear blood rushing in my ears. "How much?" Greg leaned back. "Conservatively? Between 6 and 7 million. 6 to 7 million. It didn't feel real. Like the words were made of smoke. My dad, the man who let me fade out of frame in every family photo, had just handed me a fortune. "There's also a video," Greg said, reaching into a drawer. He placed a small black USB drive on the desk like it was a loaded weapon. "What's on it?" "His final message." "I haven't seen it." He was adamant it be delivered only to you. I didn't pick it up. Greg waited. When I didn't move, he cleared his throat. One more thing. He wrote letters. One for you. One for Marlene. One for Caleb. They haven't seen theirs yet. Why? He didn't want them to know about the inheritance until after today. The paperwork included a delayed notification clause. They're getting theirs, right about now. I pictured it. Marlene in her kitchen, sipping overpriced tea. Caleb probably hungover, draped across some luxury couch he didn't earn. The knock at the door. The envelope. Their future evaporating in a few paragraphs of legalese. They thought they were getting everything, I said. It wasn't a question. Greg nodded. They still do. For another 5 minutes. I let out a shaky laugh. The kind that doesn't reach your eyes. Are you okay? He asked. I looked out the window. Birds moved like static across the glass. I don't know. Greg stood, walked to the filing cabinet, pulled out a manila envelope and handed it to me. Keys, codes, contact lists, everything you need to start, whatever this is. I took it with both hands. It felt heavier than it should have. This doesn't fix anything, I said. No, Greg agreed. But it's yours now. All of it. I walked out of his office into a bright morning that didn't feel like mine. $7 million. 3 properties. A dead father's apology. And a storm coming straight for me. Marlene would burn the world to get back what she thought she deserved. And Caleb? He'd never been told no a day in his life. Let's see how he handled it now. By the time I pulled into the driveway of the old house, I was already sweating through my shirt. Not from heat. From the weight of what I was about to walk into. It looked the same. White shutters, red door, that stupid ceramic frog by the porch Marlene claimed was vintage Italian, but probably came from a strip mall. Only now it felt like enemy territory. The inheritance letter was folded in my pocket. My father's signature felt like a curse pressed against my thigh. I hadn't slept. Hadn't eaten. I didn't know if I was here for answers or vengeance. I knocked once. Twice. Then the door opened. Marlene. She blinked like she couldn't quite process me standing there. Her mouth opened, then closed. That practiced smile she wore in every Christmas card faltered. Well, she said finally, arms crossing. I suppose you heard. Yeah, I heard. I just came from Greg's. Her face stiffened like I'd mentioned a war crime. Of course. Behind her, I heard footsteps. Caleb. He looked the same as he did in every smug family photo. Tall, tanned, hair like a shampoo commercial, confidence radiating off him like cheap cologne. Except now, there was something else in his eyes. Confusion, then anger. What are you doing here? He snapped. I thought we might want to talk, I said. Marlene stepped forward, blocking the door. I don't think that's a good idea. You know about the trust. She didn't answer, but her silence said more than words ever could. You thought it was yours. All of it. Her jaw tightened. Your father wasn't in his right mind. He hadn't been for months. Funny, Greg said everything was notarized. Witnessed. Airtight. Caleb laughed. It wasn't a happy sound. This is ridiculous. You show up out of nowhere, and suddenly you're the heir to everything? I didn't ask for any of this, I said. No, you just took it. There it was. The resentment. The entitlement. As if I had broken into their vault and stolen something that was rightfully theirs. Marlene turned cold. You need to leave. I will, I said. But you need to hear this first. I reached into my pocket, pulled out the copy of the letter Greg had given me. I didn't hand it to her. I just read. You deserve the life I should have given you. So I left it to you. All of it. Her eyes narrowed. Caleb looked like he was about to explode. You think that erases everything? She hissed. No, I said. But maybe it's a start. For a second, no one moved. Then I turned and walked back to my car. I didn't look back. But as I reached the end of the driveway, I saw Marlene in the mirror. She wasn't crying. She was dialing her phone. And that's when I knew. This wasn't over. It hadn't even started. Marlene didn't call to talk. She called to declare war. By noon the next day, Greg had already left me 3 voicemails, each more tense than the last. He was calm, but I could hear the subtext. Marlene had lawyered up. She's alleging mental decline, Greg said. That your father wasn't of sound mind when he rewrote the will. Of course she was. I sat in the corner booth of a diner just outside town, watching my coffee go cold while the words replayed in my head. Mentally unfit. As if the man who could balance 3 businesses and remember the name of every vendor in the county suddenly lost his mind when he chose me. The server dropped the check. I didn't move. My appetite had evaporated 2 days ago. All I could think about was that damn video drive still sitting in the bottom of my bag. I hadn't watched it. Not yet. I was scared of what it might say. Greg had sent copies of all the legal docs, along with an email full of bullet points, trust conditions, property access, banking limits. He ended with a line that stuck with me. They will try to rewrite history. Stay ahead of them. I left the diner and drove straight to the lake house. I hadn't been there since I was 13. Back then it felt like a second home. Back then, he still called me champ, still ruffled my hair and asked about my science projects. Now it was mine, keys in hand. I stood on the porch with a strange sense of vertigo, like I'd opened a door into another life. Inside, nothing had changed. Same plaid couch, same fishing rods by the window. The air smelled like pine, dust, and ghosts. I dropped my bag, sat at the little kitchen table, and finally slid the USB into my laptop. The screen went black for a beat. Then my father appeared. He looked tired, older than I remembered, wearing the green flannel he always wore when he was trying to be casual but still in control. "Hey kid," he said, voice soft, a little shaky. I didn't realize I was holding my breath. "I don't know how to start this," he continued. "I guess. I was a coward. For years. I let other people decide what kind of father I was going to be. And by the time I woke up to it, I didn't know how to undo the damage." He paused, looked down, then back up. "I thought time would fix it. But time doesn't fix anything. People do. Or they don't." I felt something rise in my throat. "You were always good, you know? You never asked for anything. Never guilt me. Even when I gave you every reason to hate me." He reached for something off camera. Papers maybe. I wrote it all down. The will, the instructions. "Greg has everything. I needed to say it out loud. That I'm sorry." He swallowed hard. "I should have fought harder for you. I should have never let her put space between us. Caleb's not a bad kid, but I let her turn him into something he wasn't meant to be. And I let you become a stranger." My hands were shaking now. "I can't fix the past, but I can give you the future. It's yours. Not because you need it, but because you deserve to know, at least once, that I saw you." The screen went dark. I sat there for a long time, just breathing. Then I opened Greg's email again. Let them try to rewrite history. I had the truth. And now, I had my voice. It was time to use it. Marlene showed up at the lake house 2 days later. No warning. No text. Just the sound of tires on gravel and the sight of her Mercedes nosing up the winding path like it belonged there. I watched her from the window. She got out slowly, dressed like a woman who still thought appearance was power. Dark sunglasses, tailored blazer, heels that didn't belong anywhere near pine needles. Her lips were tight. Her posture said she came to negotiate. Or maybe to conquer. I didn't move. Let her knock once, twice, before opening the door. "You're a coward," she said. Not even a hello. "Come in," I replied. "Or do you prefer to do this on the porch?" She stepped in, eyes scanning the room like she was inventorying memories she never made. She stood stiff in the middle of the living room, then turned to face me. "You think this is justice?" "I think it's overdue." She took off her sunglasses and let them dangle from her fingers. "He wasn't well. He was vulnerable. You don't." I said it soft but sharp, enough to cut through her script. "Don't rewrite him now. Not after all the years you spent making sure I was invisible." She opened her mouth, closed it again. "He chose you out of guilt. That's all it was." "Then why are you so angry?" She flinched. That tiny crack in the mask. "Because he gave away what he built. Because he threw away his legacy for. His legacy is rotting in a cemetery, Marlene. And all you cared about was who signed the check." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "You think you're better than me? Than Caleb?" I stared at her. "No, but I think I finally stopped letting you convince me I was worse." The silence hung heavy. She looked away, toward the kitchen, toward nothing. He was everything to Caleb. And what was I? She didn't answer. When she turned back, her voice was flat. "We're contesting it. You'll lose." "That's not the point." I nodded slowly. Of course it wasn't. It was about the fight, the image, the control. She reached into her purse, pulled out a photo, and set it on the table. It was me, age 6, holding a trophy, my dad's arm around my shoulder. "He kept this in his drawer," she said. "Then why didn't he ever show it?" "Because he didn't know how to fix it. He thought pretending would keep the pain away." I looked at the photo, the crooked smile on my face, the pride in his eyes. "Tell Caleb I'm not the enemy," I said. You'll never be family. I never was. She turned to leave, then stopped at the door. You may have won the will, she said, but you'll lose everything else. I didn't respond. She walked out, and for the first time since he died, I felt something shift. Not peace. Not yet. But I wasn't afraid of them anymore. Caleb didn't show up in a Mercedes. He came in a beat-up Jeep he probably borrowed, hoodie pulled low, sunglasses on like he thought anonymity was a shield. But you can't sneak up on someone who's been waiting his whole life to be seen. I was already on the porch, coffee in hand, watching the lake flicker like it had secrets of its own. He parked crooked, didn't bother cutting the engine, just stepped out and stared at me, like I was something he couldn't quite name. Did you come to hit me or talk? I asked. Maybe both, he said. I nodded toward the steps. Pick one, then sit. He walked up slow. Every movement was tight. I'd seen that same stiffness when we were kids, him pretending not to care when my dad missed another of my birthdays to take him to some baseball camp. He sat, took off the glasses. His eyes were red, but not from crying. No, Caleb was the kind of guy who boiled inside. Rage was cleaner than grief, easier to control. Did you even like him? He asked. The question hit like gravel in my throat. Not always. But I loved him, even when he forgot how to love me back. Caleb looked away, down at the deck. He was my dad. He was my dad first. The words came out sharper than I intended. I didn't take anything from you, I added. I just took back what he left behind. He laughed bitter. You know what hurts the most? It's not the money. It's that he didn't tell me. That he just left it like a grenade, and you're holding the pin. I swallowed. He didn't know how to say goodbye, so he tried to make up for it with a signature. He failed. Yeah, he did. But maybe now we don't have to. That caught him off guard. He blinked. What do you mean? I'm not kicking you out of the lake house. Not yet. You and I, we've got years of silence between us. But I'm done pretending you don't exist. And I won't be part of whatever campaign Marlene's about to launch. He scoffed. You think she's the problem? I think she built the wall. We just kept painting it. We sat in silence for a while. The lake shifted. Wind pushed memories through the trees. Finally, Caleb said, She wants blood. I know. She's talking to the press. I winced. Of course she is. She says you manipulated him. That you forged everything. I looked at him. Do you believe that? He didn't answer right away. No, he said finally. But I wish I did. It'd be easier than facing the truth. We didn't hug. We didn't shake hands. But when he stood to leave, he paused. If she comes after you, legally or otherwise, I might not stop her, but I won't help her either. I nodded. That was the most honest truce we could manage. He walked away, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was fighting for space in my father's house. I was just living in it. The press didn't call. They stormed. It started with a blog post on some second-rate gossip site, complete with a headline that read like it was ripped from daytime TV. Son from first marriage claims entire inheritance. Family left with nothing. Then came the photos. Me, at the gas station. Me, outside Greg's office. Me, staring blankly at a courtroom I hadn't even entered. Marlene was feeding them. I could hear her voice in every quote. He was manipulated in his final days. He didn't understand what he was signing. My husband would never abandon his family. Funny how I was never part of that word. Greg warned me it would get ugly. But I didn't expect the vultures to be so fast. I got texts from numbers I didn't recognize. Reporters pretending to be friends. Camera crews staking out the end of the lake road like I was Bigfoot. One day, I walked out and found a drone hovering over the cabin. That night, I cracked a bottle of scotch my dad had kept hidden behind the fishing gear. Old stuff. Dusty label. Probably hadn't been touched in a decade. I poured a glass, sat by the fireplace, and let the burn remind me I was still real. The next morning, Caleb texted me. She's going on TV. Local station. 7 p.m. It's pre-recorded. But bad. I didn't respond. Instead, I showered, shaved, pulled on a jacket I hadn't worn since my last job interview. Then I called Greg. I want to speak. Publicly. He sighed. You sure? She wants to drag me into her spotlight. Fine. But she's not the only one with a voice. We scheduled an interview with a quieter outlet. No flash. No clickbait. Just a reporter named Sarah who'd covered local politics and had a reputation for getting it right. We met at a coffee shop, just off Main. I brought copies of the will, the trust, the notarizations. And I brought the USB drive. I want you to see this, I said. Sarah watched the video with the kind of stillness only honest people know how to carry. When my dad's face faded from the screen, she looked at me. He loved you. He just didn't know how to show it. I nodded. That's the story. Not the millions. Not the house. The story is, he tried, too late. And I'm trying not to waste it. The article dropped 2 days later. It didn't go viral. It didn't trend. But it changed something. The cameras left. The text stopped. Even the lake felt quieter. Marlene didn't call. Caleb didn't write. But someone did send a letter. No return address. No signature. Just one line. You didn't deserve to be forgotten. I read it 3 times. Then I folded it up, slid it inside the letter my dad left me, and tucked them both in the desk drawer beside the deed. Somewhere in that silence, I heard something that almost sounded like forgiveness. And I let myself believe it might one day be mine. The lake froze early that year. It caught me off guard. One morning I stepped outside with my coffee, and the water was just still, like the world had finally exhaled. I stood there, barefoot, breath puffing in the cold air, and thought, this must be what starting over feels like. Not loud, not dramatic, just quiet. Marlene didn't file a lawsuit. Whether it was Greg's warning letters, or the pressure from the article, or maybe even Caleb whispering enough behind closed doors, I'll never know. But the silence from her side stayed unbroken. Until the envelope came. Thick paper. Gold trim. No stamp. It was slipped under the door like a secret. No note. Just an invitation. Caleb's wedding. I stared at it for a long time. My name was spelled right. The date was soon. Too soon. I almost threw it away. Almost. Instead, I called Greg. You think this is a trap? No, he said. I think it's an opening. You decide what it becomes. I didn't RSVP. I just showed up. It was held in a rented barn, candles everywhere, flowers that looked like they cost more than my first car. Caleb was in a sharp black suit, standing tall, proud, but when he saw me slip into the back row, he nodded. That was enough. Marlene didn't speak to me, but she didn't block my path either. We crossed eyes once, hers glassy, unreadable, and then never again. After the ceremony, Caleb found me by the exit. You came. You invited me. He held out his hand. We shook. She's not happy, he said. She never was. That made him smile. Just a little. You staying at the lake? For now. He nodded. You know, you don't have to keep punishing yourself with that place. Maybe not. But it's the first home that ever felt mine. I'm not letting go just yet. Before he left, he said something I didn't expect. He would have been proud of you. I didn't answer. Just watched him walk away. That night, I drove back to the lake house. Lit the fireplace. Pulled out my father's letter one more time. Read it slow. Forgiveness doesn't come all at once. It trickles in, disguised as other things. A handshake. A silent nod. An empty threat that never lands. I folded the letter. Slid it into a drawer beside the deed. Then I picked up the phone. Called my mother. First time in years. It rang once. Twice. Then, hello. I closed my eyes. Hey, Mom. It's me. I've got a story to tell you. And for the first time in a long, long time, I wasn't alone.